Hi, all. This is Furkan, and welcome back to Fugitive Chefs podcast. Today's episode is going to be a little different. There's no guest, there's no interview, it's just me. Because after 34, 35 something episodes of talking for hours with chefs who have walked out of restaurant kitchens to build something of their own, I started to see a pattern. And I realized that we, the people who love food but don't always fit inside the restaurant kitchen, into the systems, we are part of something bigger. So today I want to share with you what I've learned from these conversations, why I'm starting a new chapter of Fugitive Chefs, and how you can be a part of it. It's sort of like a summary of the journey so far of the podcast. And what more can we do out here, with the people who are listening? That is you. So when I started this podcast, I just wanted to tell stories of chefs who decided to do food differently. But over the time, the show became something else, a living map. We've had people like Dani Lassa in the episode 1 who left Mugaritz after 2 decades of working over there to start Imago and work with UN on food projects across the world. We also had Vojtech Vegh, who built the first zero-waste restaurant and turned sustainability into education, to his platform, to content making, to storytelling, and now with big brands and companies. We also had Pat Clifford, who now leads flavor innovation, and he's the principal research lead at PepsiCo. He takes a chef's imagination into the world of R&D, somebody who came from the ranks. He rose up from the ranks, worked in the cruise industry, and today works at PepsiCo. We also had recently Dan Giusti, who went from Noma, being a head chef over there, to school cafeterias and showed us that feeding 1,000 kids can be as meaningful as feeding 30 guests at fine dining table, actually more honestly. And so many more like Eddie Shefford, Sorme, Imron, John Regefolk from Culinary Center, Nabila, who used to work at Alchemist, Frederick, who's constructing an ingredients company. We had Nick, who's a forager. So all of them in their own way said the same thing. The kitchen was never the end, it was the beginning. And that's what Fugitive Chefs podcast has been from day one. The people rewriting what it means to work with food. After all these conversations, I started to see 5 clear paths that keep appearing. They are not exits from the kitchen. They are just extensions of it, I would say. So the first path is R&D and food innovation. These are chefs who take creativity into labs, tech startups, product design, technological centers, food innovation departments. So people like Johnny Drain, who's translating fermentation into science and flavor system. That's, I would say, path number 1. I would say path number 2 would be education and research. So chefs who became teachers and thinkers. They are documenting food, knowledge for others that they can build upon them. So their example could be John Regefolk, who was on our episodes, and he's working at Culinary Center, a chef himself, and then became somebody who gives education and imparts education today. Then we had Sandhya Kumar from Chennai in India, and she's working at the Future Food Institute, again, translating her knowledge into education, into an academic language. I would say that's the path number 2. Part number 3, I would say, would be sustainability and systems. So people who work on sourcing, waste, circular design. And over there, I would put people like Vojtech, who's I mentioned earlier, Chef Ned Bell from Canada, who's working on the whole ocean systems. And so many more who I had on the podcast, who are people who are looking at the food chain as one big ecosystem. So again, starting from restaurants, starting from cooking skills, but how that vision makes them into this path number 3, Path number 4, I would say, is storytelling in media. Now, that is one path I think many of these chefs I've mentioned earlier are doing it also. But I would say some of them that I can mention are people who are basically writing, filming, recording, and turning their craft into communication. So there I would put Eddie Shefford from Manchester, who has this great restaurant on the podcast we shared with you. And he's been documenting all this stuff on YouTube, sharing with people, and growing his crowd from there. Also, Chef Joseph Yona, he goes by Brooklyn Bugs on Instagram. And he has been a great guest because he's teaching edible insects, and this very podcast is a part of that path. Him spreading his story of insect eating and how insect agriculture and the transparency into that whole department and whole ecosystem goes through. So I would say that would be the path 4. I would say, which is storytelling and media. I would like to put that into. The path 5, I would say, is something very exciting. I really like all these guests who come from this path, which is entrepreneurship and new formats, not just entrepreneurship, So these are the builders. They are the ones starting supper clubs, starting products, education platforms. So from Maria Barriga, who does dinners in New York as a private chef, to Julius, who's doing his whole new language of chocolate, coming from a generation of chocolate family on this whole new entrepreneurship into existing chocolate world in Belgium and across. And then people like Sorme, who I most recently had, who's building a supper club in a place like Iran. So these are people who are doing entrepreneurship, new formats. Also, to not mention, I forgot to mention, but Andres is creating this guacamole from fava beans, calling it fava mole, getting investors from and public help from Amsterdam. So the things he's doing it fits into this path 5 of entrepreneurship and new formats. So this is going to be a very short episode, but I want to tell you why am I doing this solo episode today, because I realized that after hearing these stories, there's another group of people out there, and maybe that's you, the people who are listening. So I was like, this has just been a broadcast. Like, this has just been me interviewing people who I think are inspirational, who have done this Fugitive Chefs path and they have lived it. And then I thought, this can't be just a broadcast. This can't be just me telling your story, which is good because I get a lot of messages from you guys, emails from you guys on how this content is helping you. A lot of young chefs out there who are listening, who text me every day saying that, this content is helping me, or this particular episode helped me get some tricks that I needed to pivot my career. But I feel this has to be more of a community. So for me, this episode helps me to kind of break down, like over here, I've shared you in the past 5 minutes, like a small breakdown of how these 5 parts that are emerging and these patterns. So you can see which one fits you best and use that as a categorization for yourself to see in which of these boxes you fit, and you redefine the box itself, So I thought I have to speak to people like you. So people who are listening and thinking that, what about me? How do I start? It's good listening to these stories, but how do I start? And that's why I'm experimenting this new format. Every few weeks, I will basically drop a shorter reflection like this one, less interview, more context, and more conversations between us. And I generally love your feedback on it. Like, do you want more of these? Should they go deeper? Should they be longer? Should they be more practical? Should there be more lessons of how to break down these paths, like R&D or food innovation labs, how to look for jobs like these, or what qualifications these jobs need, which a chef just needs to build those blocks and can compensate for the missing degree in food tech possibly. So should there be more practical? Should there be more lesson formats, e-learning? What is it that you're looking from me? And so for that, I need you to message me, comment on LinkedIn, email. Everything's in the show notes. I'll leave it out there wherever you're listening. I'm on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And I'm also creating content on LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, basically, this episode comes out on Tuesday. And on Friday, I'll be putting up a PDF about these 5 parts that I've showed you, So you have something physically visual that you can print out and basically chalk out your map from there. And now here's the big news. And this is what, it's a short episode. We're already at like minute 7, 8. And the big news is basically out of this podcast, a community is forming. This started when recently, like a few months ago, I started getting more and more DMs from people, mostly students, I would say, mostly young chefs starting in the restaurant industry and reaching this pivot of like, oh, what's next? Or this question, like, what's beyond restaurants, or what else can I do? And I thought the one thing that I can share with you is create a community. So we are forming a community. It's called the Fugitive Chefs Circle. It's for chefs, food researchers, creative professionals, basically people who feel that pull to work beyond the pass. So here's what we're building together. We'll do monthly newsletters with insights, job postings, guest stories, summaries of lessons we learned from all these episodes. We'll also in the future start mentorship programs, one-to-one coachings for chefs who are navigating these transitions. We are also planning to chalk out office hours. This is where basically we get together in small group conversations. So, for example, 5 of you who want to start a private dining club, we get you into a group, we get an expert who's done it themselves, and we unpack these topics like R&D, creative identity, like how do you make yourself a brand, how do you identify it differently, or how do you get a certain job, as I said before. And eventually, as this path keeps growing and the circle keeps getting bigger, we also want to do courses and basically labs that are co-created with some of the guests who are on the podcast, who have been on the podcast. And the next ones, we have an amazing lineup of, honestly, guests coming up. I know until January, the ones that are coming up. So there's an amazing lineup. And we want to co-create these labs, these courses, you call it. And summarize these learnings so that these learnings are not just a story that you can learn on your way to work or before going to bed, but rather something that contributes to your career of becoming a fugitive chef. So all of this starts with a short form. It's in the show notes. And it basically helps me understand where you're at, whether you're early in your career, you're changing direction, you're studying, you are in a course right now of hospitality management like I was 10 years ago, or you're aspiring to study something to do with food and you do not know what that career would look like. So it's for people like you. I would say that's where it begins. You need to fill that form, and that's how we take it. So if this resonates with you, what I would love to do is here. Firstly, join the circle. The link is in the show notes. It's on my Insta bio, on my TikTok bio, the link in bio. And it will be also on the first comment on my LinkedIn post this week. So fill it out. You will get the first updates when we get the open pilot groups. I will possibly do some first pilot groups where we test these concepts. So it's nice if you're early in there. And we'll also do mentoring sessions, because I really want that this podcast, as I said, doesn't stay a broadcast, but helps you. So secondly, it will be, if you enjoy these conversations, the second thing I can ask you for is please follow and rate on Spotify or Apple, Fugitive Chefs podcast, because this rating really helps me out, because it takes 10 seconds and really helps more chefs to find us. People who are in a fix like you, or who are in restaurants, have the passion but don't really connect with the restaurant system, how it is today, and to transform their careers. So please do that. It takes very little. And thirdly, I will ask you, this is the third favor I ask you, go to my LinkedIn. It's called Furkan Mirza. My name is a very strange name, so there's not many out there. It's @Furkan Mirza on LinkedIn. Go there and check out the carousel I'll post on Friday. It's called Beyond the Pass. And it's the visual version of what I said earlier. Like, it's a visual version of what we talked about today. It's a great post to share with someone who's feeling stuck in their food career. And finally, tell me what you think about this new format. You have comments down there on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you're listening. Leave comments. Let me know how you like it. Do you want more reflection episodes like this? What topics should I unpack next? And your feedback will basically shape what comes next. The truth is, this podcast started for me as a way to learn. And now it's turning into a place where we can all learn together. So we've heard from chefs who have already made this jump to being a fugitive chef. Now it's time to build something for the ones who are about to. So I'm Furkan, this is Fugitive Chefs, and see you inside the circle.